So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Toby Dixon, and as it says up on the screen, I am a delivery director for Endave. I wear a couple of different hats for Endave. One is I have responsibility for the business that we do in Germany and more broadly in Europe for financial services. And secondly, I have a global responsibility for Endave, which is heading up our banking and capital markets delivery. So, a couple of different themes there that are pretty relevant for today's talk and topic. Reason for being here in Croatia today, absolutely thrilled back in March this year to welcome Five into the Endave family. Five, the agency, brings for us a significant presence in the region. It brings a great reputation. It brings some really significant clients. And actually, Croatia as a location is something that we've really had a long-held goal of being present in Croatia. So very, very pleased that through the relationship and the partnership we now have with Five, that we're looking to build that out. A little bit more on that to come in the next minutes. When I agreed to do this talk, I thought, okay, I'd like to deliver something that's relevant and interesting for the audience. And so I guess I asked myself a fundamental question, which was, what gives me the right to stand up here and talk to you about technology delivery for fintechs? So I got to thinking about... I
can answer that question.
Yes, please.
Because you're a sponsor of this conference.
Yes,
that gives you the right.
That gives me a right. I think another one, in order to deliver content that is relevant and interesting, is absolutely, based on who we are as an organisation and what we do, who we do it for, and what we see goes on around us all the time. So just to give a few words about Endave as an organisation, we're a very fast-growing IT services organisation. We have global clients, and as you can see from the map here, we work with a nearshore technology delivery model. So we are serving our clients based in Europe from Central and Eastern Europe, and North America from South America, and we've recently expanded into the APAC region as well. Our clients grow with us. Our 30% year-on-year revenue growth is based on our clients doing more with us. So in terms of what we do as an organisation, we are a next-generation technology organisation, is how we describe ourselves. We help our clients take their ideas through to production. But actually, I think that's a service description, if you like. I think that as an organisation, we're a lot more than that. At heart, we're technologists, we're engineers, we care about quality and value. We're agile, we're adaptable, we help products get fast to market. We actually focus in on the interaction point between people and technology and world-class engineering. We look to employ the best people in the regions that focus on technology talent, and we do all of this with a focus on fintech. So just to talk a little bit about our fintech universe, we have the majority of our clients are in financial services. It's actually our largest big vertical within Endave. We've got over 600 clients, and so we see at any one time a significant landscape of what's happening within fintech. Let's just take you through a few examples. I love this stat. It's really, if anybody in this audience has bought anything online in the last few days, likelihood is it went through an Endave engineered platform at some point in that chain. We are very relevant within payments. We work with one of our largest clients, is WorldPay, where we have over 500 people delivering scaled agile. And we work with across the European real-time payments network. And that's not only on the payment rails, that's actually also on the value-added services that sit on top of those rails. We're helping banks move back into payments, having gone away for a few years. We're helping other organizations and other industries, such as a very well-known Nordic retailer, actually deliver additional business streams through actually going into payments. We're also helping reinvent the future. So we're looking at biometric payments, we're looking at contactless payments, we're looking at in-car payments. So in payments, we have a very broad view of what's happening across the market. If I move on then to capital markets, it's obviously quite a demanding area because it can be very complex, but we're helping clients there with their complex challenges. We're looking at performance attribution for leading hedge funds. We're helping clients with near real-time reconciliation, tier one investment banks, big guys and girls who actually have a lot of money on the line when these platforms are needed. We work with startups in wealth, in debt capital markets, in cryptocurrencies. So finally, in insurance, another part of the fintech landscape, actually one that we think is probably one of the industry verticals that could really take off with some digitization. We know that it has that potential in it. We're looking with those organizations at the concepts that are going to challenge the market. We're looking with them at one-click insurance. We're looking with them at advanced optical character recognition that's allowing you to submit a complex 200-page submission at the Lloyd's of London box and get that automated and processed through in quick time. We're helping them with process automation. We're helping them with claims automation and auto-declinatures. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is we know a little bit about fintech. We have a lot of work every day which is focused on this sphere. And we're doing that work and learning through that kind of what's happening in the market. Okay, so back to the point then, the fintech community, delivery and how things get delivered in that community. I think in order to go into that, it's useful to just explore the ecosystem just a little bit, kind of talk about some of the things that we mean when we're talking fintech. And so I should also point out at this point in time, by the way, any names I'm going to use are not necessarily Endave clients, and any of my later comments are absolutely not aimed at any names I might use. Okay, so who are the headline makers when we're talking about fintech? So if we're talking about wealth tech, we're talking about Wealthfront, we're talking about Betterment, we're talking about Nutmeg. If we're talking in the crypto world, we're talking about Ripple, Ethereum. In the crypto markets, we're talking about Bitstamp, for example. In insurtech, we're talking about Lemonade, Clover, Cocoon. In payments, as I mentioned earlier on, some of the really kind of well-known brands, one of the original disruptors, PayPal, Klarna, Square, iSettle, Adyen, for example. With digital banks, we're talking about some of the neobanks. We're talking about N26. We're talking about Revolut, Starling, Monzo. When we're talking about alternative finance, we're talking about some of the ways that crowdfunding happens. So Crowdfunder, we're talking about Cabbage, LendUp. And probably in the area I'm least familiar with in RegTech, we're talking about Sphonic, Acuity, Forta, Hummingbird, these names. So I think that's one way to look at the market. But actually, if we're going to talk about how we're delivering to fintech, I'd like to look at it slightly differently, because I think that there are some delivery characteristics that we can actually pull together, less focused on the different industry verticals, more focused on the types of organizations. So I'll start with looking at established players and how they're delivering. Then move on to talk to the market disruptors and what those guys are doing with the market. Before finally talking about where it all starts for fintech with the startups. Okay, if we look at the established players, I think that given their longevity in the markets, they actually can be a little bit slower to react. Anybody who's worked in those organizations and worked in much smaller organizations know things can feel like they take a lot longer. Those organizations, though, are actually looking at what's happening in the markets. They're looking at the disruptors, they're looking at the startups, they're looking at the people who are nimble, and they want to be nimble too. When it comes to how you deliver your technology, for these guys, what's really important is any legacy that they will be carrying within the organization. So there are opportunities to decouple legacy, and an awful lot of organizations are actually doing that at the moment in order to be able to decouple their legacy architecture from the front-end services they want to be producing products through. However, my view on the world is that that is actually ultimately going to still slow you down. Your products will evolve and you will get to a point where your legacy will not be able to keep up. It will become the slowest moving part in the machinery, And that's the thing that will slow you down. So if we're looking at how these established players are approaching things and the kinds of projects and the kinds of themes that we're talking with those guys about at the moment, these are around tackling the legacy. There is an acknowledgement that that needs to happen within the organisations. Addressing technical debt is something that people are focusing on as well. And finally, in order to be in a position to address agility and move faster, this is something that these guys are also needing to have in place. Secondly then, if we talk about the disruptors, these guys are obviously used to being faster, they're used to being nimble. However, over the course of their life cycle, they are wanting to establish themselves as serious players within the markets. So these guys are wanting to be known as being reliable, solid, built to last. The scalable architecture that these guys need and a delivery model that they need is about growing with them. So they may well have started with some tactical solutions, but obviously those tactical solutions that they have built in order to get to where they are today needs to be addressed. Their architecture needs to be moved forward to the place where it can be reliable, scalable. So these organisations, the kind of things that they're looking at and the interest they're having are around making sure they have a scalable architecture, making sure they have a scalable and performant infrastructure, making sure that their delivery model is fit for purpose, and ultimately looking at the level of automation that they have within their organisation in order to be able to do that. Okay, thirdly, the startups then, the places where it all begins. Obviously, these guys are starting up. They are entrepreneurial by nature. It's very exciting. These guys are innovative, and they've got big ambitions. They're clearly wanting to move themselves through to, be one of the big success stories in the market. Question for the startups is always whether or not the people who have the great ideas are able to also focus in on how they're delivering technology within their environments. So what they actually need to watch out for is that they're spending so much time on the ideas that they're not keeping an eye on what happens next for them. One of the things for the startups is actually the clients that they will win first will be expecting that they have a certain level of maturity within the organisation. These clients, depending on the organisations and the startups that they're focusing on, if it's the large banking world, they absolutely will want these platforms to be scalable, robust, performant. And so this is the challenge for the startups is absolutely around making sure that they are far-sighted enough that they are establishing their structures early, making sure that they're careful about non-functional requirements, because these things do tend to bite you at the back end of a critical delivery. And actually also looking at identifying breakpoints. So if they understand that their architecture is only going to take them to a certain place, then at the point that it gets there, they will be in trouble. It's about identifying that and moving onwards with their architecture before they actually get to that point. Okay, so I think that's kind of categorizing the fintechs into three main areas and the ways that they're looking at how to deliver against the technology against those areas currently. I think the other aspect, though, is actually what trends are we seeing in the market. So we as an organisation are incredibly lucky, I think, in that we are working on these initiatives months ahead of them actually coming out to market. So we are seeing the trends that are emerging, for example, in payments. We're also seeing what's happening in banking and where things are moving to. And likewise in insurance. I think that the way to categorize these is to look at them in terms of a couple of different elements. There's some technology trends, which I'll talk to now, and then there's a second aspect. So on the technology trends, this is about being focused on bringing ideas to market as fast as possible. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about platform delivery flexibility. We're talking about cloud. We're talking about using automation and DevOps. We're talking potentially about low code in terms of speeding things up. We're talking about reducing the time from idea to production. We're talking about NFRs, as I mentioned previously. We're talking about security, which continues to get a focus within these organizations. And finally, we're actually talking about what I'm calling technology omnipresence. That is ensuring that your technology is where you need it to be at the point in time that you need it. So that can be, for example, data. There's an awful lot of work taking place at the moment in ensuring that your data architecture is fit for purpose and it is feeding data to the parts of the organization that you need it when you need it. It's also about making sure that your platforms are scalable and that you can use those services as and when you want to. So microservices is a big architectural point for us at the moment. Having open APIs, that actually means that you can take advantage of those microservices by any of the platforms who need them. The second aspect here, though, is actually an aspect around adopting a product-oriented approach, which is actually something that we are seeing is impacting the technology parts of organizations more and more. This is not about projects and systems. This is much more about products and platforms. And so if you approach it from this point of view, you're looking at keeping the customer journey in focus. You're actually looking at focusing on delivering a quality customer experience to your customers. If you are embracing this approach, what you're actually accepting is that things are not as predictable as when you were delivering previously using a very waterfall, milestone-driven approach. You are accepting that your product will actually change over time, and you're accepting that you can't always guarantee what's going to happen with that product as you move forward in the future. So these are some of the trends that we're seeing as we are talking with our clients and also the broader Fintech community. So I think probably it's a summary of, as I mentioned, hundreds of clients, thousands of projects, tens of thousands of conversations within the community. But actually, in terms of our biggest lesson, is that actually effective delivery is really about people. We haven't actually found a way to automate this yet, but it's about culture, it's about team dynamics, it's about embracing differences within teams, it's about understanding that we don't have robots, we have people, and actually making sure that you get the best out of those teams. It's about giving people a career path. It's about making sure that we have the ability to retain and develop staff. The juniors working on your projects today are going to be the seniors leading your programs tomorrow. So they are going through that apprenticeship, and if you give them a positive experience now, that will reward you in the longer term. It's about quality, and just as importantly, not seniority. Quite a lot of the fintechs assume that you actually need senior people to do everything, whereas actually you can work just as effectively, I personally think, more effectively by making sure that you have the right level of seniority within the teams, which includes juniors. Okay, I think that's kind of the thoughts I had around the fintech delivery and the themes that we see. I think that we've got very ambitious plans here in Croatia to build on our existing presence, and we're looking to bring highly skilled engineers from the market here and driving our fintech clients forward through the next stages of their evolution. Thank you very much.